Okay, recently made this for a friend. I went ahead and drew this in Illustrator and went out in the forest on my bike and got some free wood. It's already been sitting there, dried out, absolutely free. It did require me to saw it, but why you want to watch this video is if you want to learn how to draw something, and maybe you want to cheat and use another image out there, but you want the design to be your own, and you want to laser cut it or do something with it, cut it out with your wood saw, and you want to create a product for a friend, or if you want to sell that product, let's get started in Illustrator. All right, so the goal here is to make a design that you can either sell, you can create, you can give away, and it's actually yours. So which means that you own the copyrights to it. And you may want to do this because you want to make something for a gift. If you maybe your manager or someone who says, hey, we need some custom artwork, but you're not completely comfortable with drawing something from scratch. I have a project today that you're going to be very interested in, is because I'm going to teach you how to use an image as reference and to draw over it. And what the really cool thing is, with practice, like I did John's logo here on this piece of wood, we're going to go in the forest in a little bit, is with practice, you will be able to draw from scratch. But the way that you're going to get there is you're going to use a reference image. Picasso said that great artists steal, they don't copy, okay? So what that means is, or what I think it means, it means that it's okay to be inspired by something. It's just not okay to completely copy it. So what we're going to do is use a reference image, and I'm going to show you how I took a butterfly from Adobe stock, and I went ahead and used the pen tool in Illustrator. This is a valuable video because I think I not only will teach you sort of how I work and how I position myself, but how I actually make something at the very end of it. I'm also using free wood from the forest, so it's kind of a nasty day, so we got to go out there. But the beginning part of this video is going to be drawing this butterfly. So I have it up here, but I'm going to go ahead and take it away. I need my old man glasses, and I'm going to show you how I got it in. So I'm in Illustrator. I created a new file, new, and I get to choose from a lot of blank document sizes. I can just choose one because I'm not worried about the size until the very end. This is approximately 5 inches wide, but I'm not going to worry about the size because vector images are completely scalable, which means the resolution doesn't change if you make them bigger or smaller. Unlike a raster image, a photograph, which does change based on the resolution of that image. So I want to use I'm going to grab an image from Adobe stock. And what I want to do is I'm going to drag my libraries panel over. The way that you access the libraries panel is under window, you want to go to libraries. Okay, so if you're blessed enough to have a Adobe stock library, you can do that, but you can also go to regular web browser and then pick up an image there for reference. So keep in mind that if you're using generative AI, the copyrights of that image belong to the company that produced it. So whether or not it's ChatGPT or whoever produced it or Adobe, they will be able to scan back and figure that out. So you have to create your own artwork, even though that the AI has been awesome. And I'll demo a little bit about how I actually use that too. So now what I want to do is I created a folder called Ryan Demo in a library. I did that by just using this plus sign right up here. And I'm going to search for Monarch inside of the stock library. Now let me go back because see how it says search Adobe stock? If you cannot get that to come up, keep on working at it. I am in my own library. So you have to create a library and search within your library because you're going to be adding an image from Adobe stock to your library. So it's important that you keep going to get this. So you can see that I have different search criteria. I can search in Adobe stock. I can search in the current library or all libraries. So I'm going to search in Adobe stock and I'm going to go for Monarch. I realize I already have it up, but I'm just demoing it. So once I did that, I want to go through and find, here's the butterfly I want to use. Let's say this one, let's grab this one. I'm going to hit plus, and it's going to license that image. Basically, it's going to give me a license to use it as one time, and that's fine. But if you're working for a client or someone else, you need to understand that you have to have a license for each use. So now that that's there, I can drag it over. So I have already done this one. So I'm going to drag it over to my desktop and I have it right here. Now it looks a little bit like it's a little bit transparent. And the reason why that I make it transparent is up here at the top is opacity, is I want to be able to draw over it, okay? But I don't want it in my face, like getting in the way of a pencil. Imagine old school transparency paper where you did that and you wanted to not, the transparency paper created a certain degree of opacity, which only let a part of the image that you were referring to below. Same thing goes here. Now that I'm done with my libraries panel, I'm going to go ahead and dock it. And now I created in my layers palette here, layers is under Windows, layers. In my layers panel, I went ahead and created a base image of where I brought it in. And I renamed that from layer 1 to source. And the second thing I did was create another layer by hitting the plus sign, this art layer, and I called that art, and it's on top. I'm going to select the butterfly, which is in the source layer, and then bring the opacity down just so I can see it. And I chose 15%. Then I'm going to lock that layer. Okay, so now I have my reference and I cannot touch it. I have a nice big desktop where I can draw. Now I am using a trackpad here on my side of my desk, but I also, because of some of the complexities of how the pen tool works, I use a mouse. So depending on what I want. Now, a lot of people are on their laptops. You can use your trackpad, but it's absolutely imperative for design that you actually have a mouse because of all the things you can do with it. So now that I have my art up, I'm going to select my art layer right here, and that will give me the ability to draw on that layer. If I were to select the source, it would yell at me and say, hey, you have a locked layer. You're not trying to draw on it, are you? So I'm going to choose the artwork, and then I'm going to choose my pen tool. The pen tool can be activated by pressing the letter P on your keyboard, but I just go ahead and use this tool palette here. I just drag it right where I need to. If you notice that I'm dragging my panels where I want them in the design, similar to how you would use different tools with crafting like glue, you would move it near you. I'm moving these around. Since I'm done with my layers for now, I'm going to go back and dock it there, but I still can see it in my panels on my right-hand side. I went ahead and closed some of the panels that I'm not using right now. I just hitting the X mark. So let's say I didn't need the swatches panel. I can just select that panel and then just turn it off. I want to share as much workflow stuff so you can actually pick things up, because when I started as a technical illustrator, I really didn't have that. So now that I am starting to draw, I want to make sure that my layers palette is in fact selected the art layer, which is I'm going to draw over this locked butterfly. The way that I have it locked, again, is locking the source, dragging my the layers panel back over to the right, choosing the pen tool. Now let me go over the pen tool. The pen tool is not a tool that you actually draw like you would a pencil. What you're going to be doing is selecting points. So when I first select my first point, I'm going to demo with a really bad circle at first. So I have my pen tool, which is just P, and I'm going to just click, drag. Now, a lot of people think that they're drawing with these control points that are out there. You're not. All you're doing is choosing points, and you're making the ability for it to be a future curve. Again, you are not drawing with these Bezier points. All you're doing is click dragging. I'm holding down my shift key, which constrains my Bezier points. So let me give you an example. When you do a circle, you have different control points. So I am click dragging and I'm creating a curved shape by manipulating those Bezier points and how far did I drag them. But the great news is after you're done, you can move this around and you can move each one of these points around. I'm using the direct selection tool, which is right here. I can move this around and I can start building my circle. So let me demo that again. So to draw a circle, I'm not so much worried about drawing a perfect circle. If I wanted that, I could go to my circle tool and just hold my shift key down and drag a circle. It still has all of my points in here that I can move around, but I'm showing you how to draw. So I'm going to select my pen tool, click drag the first point, click drag the second point, click drag the third point, fourth, and then my final thing I want to do to make it a closed loop, click the last one, it's snapping, and click and drag, okay? Now I'm saying, okay, that's it's a pretty good, maybe if you're drawing a comic book guy, it's pretty bad. So I'm going to move all the different points around, and now I have it. You can even move the Bezier points around these control points and then change the circle. Okay, what I like about this is it's not a perfect circle. Life is not perfect. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. No one's perfect. But if you're drawing art, you don't want things to be perfect. You don't want things to be perfectly symmetrical all the time. So now that you have that little demo in the pen tool, I'm just moving around and zooming in and out using my mouse, okay? You need to practice with this. It is muscle memory. There's this thing about 10,000 times. I think if you were to draw different shapes every day for about a week, you would be rocking with this pen tool. Okay, here I go. I'm only going to design half. First point, I'm going to grab right inside of the body of this butterfly, and I'm going to click drag, even though that I'm only doing 1 point. And now I'm going to click drag the second point. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to keep click dragging, and I'm not drawing with this little thing. You notice what I'm doing is I just went ahead. Sorry. I went, and I wish I could undo myself. I went and did Command Z, which is edit, undo, right here, Command Z. And now I'm just click dragging my new lines. I don't really like how that happens, so I'm going to select my last point, and then I'm going to click drag. So what you can do with your last point is you can select it, and you can move it around. You know what? Oh, it's putting the fill on it. I don't want fill. So this is pretty good. You know, I'm giving you, over here on the left, it's putting white fill on, and it's really distracting me. So I'm going to select the fill, and I'm going to select none down at the bottom. And now I can go back to my design by selecting the last point, not the control point of the handle. You don't want the handle. You actually want the anchor point. I'm going to click again. If I were to get distracted and I would stop drawing, I can start over because it lets me select the last point, and I can keep going, click dragging. Okay. I'm not using the handle, which is these two little things on the end. I'm trying to determine the point. And then I'm click dragging, and then I'm click dragging. Now I can just kind of, once I get a feel for it, because I don't want it to be identical, I'm just building this myself. And now I'm kind of thinking, do I want this to be separated? I'm not sure how a butterfly's wings are, but I'm just kind of enjoying that. I'm enjoying the fact that I get to sort of study this butterfly as I am, because I just like stuff like this. So now I have part of the wing done. So I didn't do one of my biggest rules in design. I didn't save my file. So I'm going to go to File, Save As. So when I teach, I basically let people know that you have to save your file. So I'm going to call this Monarch Coaster, because that's what I'm going to make. I'm going to end up making a laser coaster, and now I have it saved. Okay. Now I can just hit Command S, and I can just save the file. So now I have my very unique different outline of the top left wing. So now I'm going to start with the bottom. I'm going to just start moving from near that point, click dragging my first point, and just moving my butterfly around. I'm click dragging. I don't really mind if it's different or if it's odd. I can always go back in. Now in this situation, I do want some more detail down at the bottom of the wing, because I'm imagining what this would look like. I'm taking pride or knowing that eventually I want this not only to be a really cool design, I want it to have enough detail that it makes for a really cool product, all right? Or basically a logo or anything else. I'm just sort of following this line. I didn't like that, so I hit undo, and I'm still staying in the flow, and I'm moving around. And when I get to my last point, I still click and drag, and now I have my next part of my wing done. Just for fun, I'm going to go ahead and do the antennae, because a butterfly's got to have antennae, or is it antenna? All right, so I'm just going to click drag here and move the antenna, and I'm going to exaggerate the top of the antenna. I'm sure there's a name, if a biology person or a botanist, not a botanist, that's a plant thing. Maybe you can tell me, but I'm just click dragging. I can zoom if I want. And you're just going to have to practice. I'm in between my mouse and the trackpad that I have separate. If you're on your laptop, that's not a problem, but I would not suggest doing a laptop. So I'm just click dragging, and I'm just going to put this together here and finish the antennae. So now I have my two parts of my wing, and I'm zooming in because I don't want to lose control of where I'm at. I kind of look at this as a piece of paper. Sometimes I draw on the iPad with the pencil, but in this situation, I'm at a nice desktop. I have a nice chair and a nice big monitor that I'm looking at. So now we're going to go ahead and do some of the inside parts. So as I'm doing this, I'm going to explain to you that you can trace an image, but when you trace an image, it's more like copying the image. This is a little bit different because instead of, I could go out in the woods and I could grab a butterfly that doesn't exist, so I could take a picture of it. But what I really like about this is it teaches you, eventually you will have that input of that butterfly in you, and you'll be able to draw a butterfly from scratch. Now, keep in mind that you're going to have some level of interest of drawing. Like I get a lot of joy from drawing images. I get a sense of a completion and stuff like that because I like doing my own things. And even though that all this generative AI stuff is around right now, people cannot, there will be the ability to scan an image. People can't fight me when I have a sketch that says, or a recording that I actually drew this, but having the ability to draw things from absolute scratch is really a superpower, I believe. So while I'm doing this, my brain is kind of taking in all the different parts of this wing, all the different interesting things of the wing, and I can go back, and if I wanted, I can move different objects around. I can change the handles and the control points to make it unique. So I'm just going to keep going here. I'm just click dragging all the different parts. Now, what I like about this is that I won't have to do the second part. I'm going to use the reflection tool, but I get to take the time and to do this. Now, sometimes it was really helpful to zoom into what you're doing. And that is something you're just going to have to get used to, whether or not you use a trackpad or not. So to break up some of the monotony of me just drawing this, I'm going to grab some of the control points and I'm going to change things. I don't like edges and things that are sharp. I would rather have smooth edges that go around. So by grabbing by selecting the direct selection tool, which is the right arrow on the right, you can actually go through and change or move parts of the anchor points and the handles of the anchor points. So an anchor point is if I'm just going to draw a little line. So I have on each end of a line, I have what's called a handle, okay? And this is the part of the thing that I didn't get when I was first started out. These are the handle, but in the center, you have a control point. You have these little points that are in the center. This is what you're drawing when I'm drawing this line. These are your handles, which you move and manipulate the line. So here I'm going to draw a line, a point in the center. I'm going to click drag, and you see that it wants me to draw the next part, but you can see that I have the handle, which is in the center, and my handles is not in the center. My control point is in the center. The anchor point is in the center, and then the handles are to the left and the right. Okay, so now I'm just going to keep going with this. I'm going to keep drawing, and I'll probably speed up the video, but you get my point. I am just really enjoying just sort of the whole idea of moving this around and zooming in. A lot of times I wouldn't be making a demo. I'd be putting on some music, listening to music, but I'm creating my own design and dragging things around. The more you use this, the more you're going to learn things that I'm not showing you. Like when I get to the final point of this line and I'm looped around, I still can drag that last point around. And then also when I finish the loop, I'm able to start a new one without selecting any points. So I'm just grabbing these little spots that nature creates and moving these little lines around. Anything that I want to show up in my design is really what I'm going after. Okay? So this one is not as apparent, but I know that I want that level of detail that's in my design. So I'm just going to add it in, and I'm going to zoom back out. I'm using 2 fingers on my trackpad, and I have my mouse right next to me. So those are really 2 great investments for a designer to happen. So I'm going to take a break from this top wing, and I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to zoom in, click, drag, creating the curves as I go. By moving those handles around the anchor points, I'm able to create that curvature and that naturalness that I want. I don't want sharp edges like this, okay? So the way that you get those sharp edges, you're not click dragging. You'll forget for a while. So I finish the loop, I can just start with a new design. So I think that what's fun about this for me is that it just kind of just like someone that crochets or draws or plays video games. I get a bunch of joy from I get joy from just having the cadence of these and changing this into my own thing. Now in this situation, this little part of the wing is a little bit sharper edges, but I'm still going to make all my edges a little bit round. Okay, I'm going to take a break from these wing parts, and I'm going to start making the head and the body of the butterfly. Now, obviously, a butterfly has it all attached, but what I'm going to do is just make it a little bit different. So this is interesting because there's little tiny parts here that I wanted, but I could only draw them if I zoomed in. Now, in this situation, I'm only drawing half of the butterfly because I'm going to end up using the reflection tool. So now I'm coming back to the wing parts and I'm click dragging as I go. The click dragging is really what is making this unique, and it's making this monarch butterfly mine. So I'm click dragging, enjoying the butterfly. This is my butterfly. I'm not copying the butterfly. I guess I'm stealing it, as Picasso says, but that's really what it is. So you can have the pride to know that you created all of these lines. Now, whether or not you're saying, hey, you're using a reference, everyone used a reference. When people did portraits back in the Renaissance time, when they did a portrait of someone by a window or Mona Lisa, they didn't imagine Mona Lisa. Mona Lisa sat there, and Mona Lisa probably got grumpy and whatever. Like when I guess Da Vinci did Mona Lisa. So how long did that painting take? How many hours did Mona Lisa have to sit there? So my butterfly is just sitting there all nice and locked on the layer, and I'm just going to town, drawing all my little parts of the butterfly, learning how to click drag instead of, doing jaggedy edges. Jaggedy edges aren't really life. Life is filled with curves. Life is filled with organic radiuses in just abnormalities of things. This is the way you do it, people. You don't go ahead and just copy an image. You want something to be yours. You want to have pride to say, hey, the story is that we created this by scratch. We didn't use AI or whatever else is coming around the corner in 2000, whatever. This is just fun. To make all these images is just great. Now, obviously, if you're still listening to me, you can speed the video up, but I'm just having so much fun with this. I think this is the best thing ever. No, I screwed up. I didn't finish that image. I want everything to be finished and locked and loaded. So I'm going to come back down here, and I'm going to be click dragging my image because I'm thinking, man, this coaster is going to be done today. And I'm going to tell all of my 5 friends that I made a monarch butterfly. And that is really what I'm going to do. So I'm getting a little bit sloppy. So I don't want this one to go so close. So I'm going to reference it, but I'm not even going to come anywhere near. So the bottom one here, I'm going to do a little bit further, click drag. This is good. And this is what by finishing this up, by the time I finish this, I will really know how to do really cool butterflies. Now, when you get to this point, you can copy and paste these butterflies and make the butterfly spots and move them around. I'm dragging them, and I'm holding my option key, and I'm creating different parts of this, okay? So let's say this one is different. I'm just going to move it and scale it and move it around, but I'm getting it done. I'm creating my own design. I drew this thing. This little shape is mine. And so when I move that around, that is what I am proud of. I am proud of that. I am proud that I designed something. I'm proud that something is I have the ability to draw whatever I want. Okay, we're just going to keep going here with this. So now I have the time in my head that says, hey, you better save your file. So now for the rest of the spots, I'm just going to drag a bunch of these other ones around and manipulate them. So I'm dragging the image, holding down the Option key, and then I am selecting that. The different parts, I am selecting this and scaling it and moving it around, rotating it because I want it to look abnormal. I don't want one shape to be right next to each other that's identical. I want everything to be unique. And so I'm just going to keep going because all of this will end up showing up on my coaster that I'm going to make here in a little bit. Keep in mind, if you're sticking here for the whole thing, we're going to be going in the forest, which will be interesting, you know. I don't know, you know, maybe I might get in trouble out there in the forest getting my wood. Maybe one of my neighbors will yell at me. That'll be interesting. So there's that. And so now I'm almost done with rotating my different parts around. I'm moving this the pattern around. I'm looking like, okay, these spots are really flowing with this pattern, holding my Option key down and moving the different parts around. Okay. So now, if you're not fast forwarding, maybe you just really like what I'm saying or you are not. But I'm feeling really good about this. Now, each one of these things needs to be unique. So I'm going to move my different shapes around using the direct selection tool, which is right next door to that. And so now I'm feeling like I'm coming to an end because I'm like, okay, I have all this other stuff and I have all this designs I can reflect. But what I'm looking for is what is going to be pointed out in this design that's not going to look unique. It's going to look like I copied one part. Okay. And so that is when I'm just moving different shapes around, scaling them, holding the Shift key down. And now I'm going through and I'm just making each one unique to whatever it is. Okay. So now I need some other shapes up here. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to grab some of these shapes and manipulate these shapes by scaling them, dragging a copy, and putting different shapes of different sizes all around this little guy. So this little guy is this little butterfly. I don't know what the name is. Butterfly doesn't need a name. I'm not talking about the one that I'm referencing or stealing the actual thing, just like Da Vinci may have stole Mona Lisa's image because Mona Lisa wasn't his. I don't know if it was his girlfriend or he dated Mona Lisa. I'm not sure. I don't know what the relationship was, but the fact of the matter is I'm just referencing this butterfly. I don't own this butterfly. I don't want to copy the butterfly. I want to steal from the butterfly from what that I actually need. So I'm manipulating these spots however I want, and I'm grabbing different parts of these to make it look like I am making this unique to what I want. So even these parts, I can elongate them and I can move the control points parts around and I can make something longer by choosing the A tool, which is the tool for the direct selection. Do you see how it says A right next to it? And that is really how I'm moving things around. So I'm looking at different ways how I can copy shapes, rotate the shapes. How can I manipulate this so that it really is sort of my design? This one is so unique. I'm going to actually change that by just creating a little bit by making a shape over it. But I like the way it had that little horseshoe in it. So I'm going to let that go because I am truly inspired by this monarch butterfly that I got from Adobe stock. And so now that I got all these points here, I'm going to look like, okay, I need some other ones here, but it really doesn't matter if they look, because it turns out I think there's a possibility that every monarch butterfly is completely unique. So now that I have this here, I look at this butterfly, doesn't have any spots here. So I'm going to put some spots. It looks like they go along with this area here, along with this line. So I'm going to put a few other spots that the butterfly never even had. So I'm adding different spots based on what I can see. Now at the very end, it looks like the spots are always ending with a really small one, and they always are in line with they're in line. So I'm going to hover over it until I get to my shape tool, and I'm going to move things around. But what I'm noticing that there's little gaps, there's little spots that the butterfly didn't have, and the spots were around it. So I thought that was cool. All right, so now let's go ahead and save our file, and now we're going to do the reflection of that file. Okay, so I need some of my fuel here. This is what I operate on. It's probably not healthy for you, but it's better than the alternatives. All right, now that I have this entire butterfly, the half of the butterfly done, I'm going to grab, when I say grab, I'm going to window select. I'm going to draw a window over the parts of the butterfly. I'm going to go to Object, and I'm going to group. You could also do Command G, and that groups it too. So I have all my different parts of it nicely together, so I won't grab one part. So again, that's Object Group or Command Group. I'm going to hit undo a couple times because I grouped it. You can group in a group in a group. So I'm going to select all of the left side of the butterfly, and I am going to group it. At this point, I've decided to name my butterfly. I'm calling my butterfly Juicy. I'm not sure why I'm calling butterfly Juicy. So now I have Juicy's left side all done. So, and the antenna. I cannot believe people don't put antennae on butterflies. All right. So under the reflection tool, under the circle tool is something that's called the reflect tool. Okay. The way that you access different tools underneath of this tool palette is you hold it down, the left click of your mouse, and you hit reflect tool. Okay. If you got lost, you could come up here at the top and select reflect tool, and it says transform reflect. Okay. Your help is always there waiting for you. Now that I have my reflect tool started, I want to choose where I want to mirror it from. That is my axis. I'm going to select in the center, and I'm going to move away. And now as I move it around, you can see that I'm reflecting it, but doesn't know where it wants to go yet. So I'm rotating it. It's about right there. So I'm going to hold my shift key down. That will constrain it to 90 degrees. Then my option key down, and then I'm going to let go of everything. Let me go ahead and do that again. I'm going to choose the reflect tool, which is right here. I'm going to hold it down. Usually it's the rotation tool. I'm going to hold the circle, the rotation down, and I'm going to choose reflect, which is mirror. The first thing I'm going to do is choose the axis, and it's going to create a little axis mark. I'm going to choose the axis. Okay. I'm going to choose the left axis, and I'm going to drag it around. Okay. I'm holding down my left part of my mouse. Now I'm going to hold the shift key down, then the option key. And now I have my full butterfly. Okay. So I needed to hold my shift key with my middle finger, and then I'm going to try not to just do my middle finger because that would be inappropriate, and then the index finger, and now I have this beautiful butterfly. I'm pretty happy with this butterfly. Okay, so now that that's there, I want to do something very unique with the butterfly that's a little bit more advanced. I want to make a few changes to it. Like I'm going to move, I'm going to double click inside of this group, and I'm going to move a few things inside of this butterfly that makes the left and the right a little bit different. So when I double click, I go into a group, and you're into the group with the top bar. It shows a hierarchy or a breadcrumb of where you are. So I'm in my layer of my group, and I'm on my right side. And so when I double click it, I go deep inside. Now I'm going to move and manipulate different parts and rotate them to make each side look unique, okay? It's very subtle, but it makes a huge difference. For instance, I'm going to put one more different spot here. I'm going to move this around. I'm just enjoying this whole idea of putting different things on different parts of the butterfly that are unique. So I'm going to move different spots around and then add different things because I'm getting close to the end of this design and I really want it to be unique. So I'm thinking, okay, how can I make it more unique? And then I'm just adding extra things. You can even go through and you can just manipulate different parts of the spots. It's not needed, but it just really adds another degree of interest to it. Okay, now that I have that, I have my design done. Okay, I can turn off my source layer and you can see I have my butterfly done. So now I have to determine what size I want my butterfly to be. Okay, so let's say I have to resize it. Let's go under, I'm going to use the empirical system and not metric. So I know that I'm in the United States. Empirical is inches and feet. And then a metric is kilometers, meters, centimeters, that type of thing. So I want this to be 5 inches wide. So under Illustrator at the top, I want to go to settings, units. And instead of points here for my units, there's general, selection, type, units. I want to choose inches. Okay. And now I'm here on inches. Now, in my transform palette, it's also up here to the right, the transform. I'm going to choose transform. And under transform, I'm going to drag it near me because I always like to move my panels around. I'm going to choose 5 inches wide. But before I do that, I want to make sure that I constrain my width and my height. And I'm going to select this little link thing. This link has to be on, not off with the slash. And once that's there, I'm going to select 5 for my width, and it automatically makes my butterfly the proper size, right? Because this is going to be 5 inches. Okay, so depending on what log I grab from the wood, that is what really makes a difference. Now I want to do a few things to it. This is specific to how you're going to get it done. Now I want an outside line on the outside of my butterfly to give a really cool looking appearance. The way that I'm going to do that is I am going to go in my layers palette. So my goal is to make an outside line of the whole butterfly. In my layers palette, I want to copy my art layer by dragging it down to this little plus mark. And now I have the art copy. So I'm going to call this art outline. Okay. And now when I have my art outline, I am going to turn off or toggle off the visibility of my main art that I just drew. I just have a copy of this in the art line, and I want to select everything. And using the Pathfinder tool, I want to group everything together. I want to unite. Remember, Illustrator has all these really cool tooltips. So I'm going to select unite. Now, I still need this to be an outline, and I don't want those gaps. Okay, so my goal here now is to get rid of these gaps so I can do a really nice outline around my butterfly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the butterfly. Remember, I'm working with the copy. I went ahead and saved my previous one down there, my previous original one that I traced over the source. And now I'm going to swap the fill with the stroke. And I'm going to use my paintbrush tool with black selected. And if you don't have a big brush, like that's not a big brush, I'm going to use my bracket tool and I'm going to make my paintbrush a little bit bigger. And now I'm just going to fill in these different parts here, right? Fill in these different parts with black. So it's not ready to do an outline yet. What I want to do is select that stroke, which is the paint I just created. And I want to go to Object, Path, Outline Stroke. Again, Object, Path, Outline Stroke. When that happens, I want to select everything, go back to my Pathfinder tool and select Unite. After that, I can go to Object, Path, Offset Path, and I can offset it just a little bit. And I wish it was kind of back to pixels, but I'm going to go to 0.08. This is experimentation on your part. Select round and then select OK. And now I'm going to swap the fill and the stroke again. And now I got this beautiful outline. Okay, I don't need the inside anymore. You can either delete that or you can put it on a different layer. I'm choosing to put it on a different layer. I'm going to hit Command X, create a new layer, drag that layer down to the bottom and hit Edit, Paste, and back. Now, if I ever need that inside layer to do anything more with another operation, I have it. I'm going to hide that. I'm going to name that layer called Inside of Butterfly. Okay, now I have my outline and I have my artwork. I'm going to make my stroke weight of the outside out on just a little bit bigger. And now I'm getting to the design, what I want to design with. What I want this coaster to look like. Okay. Now, however, it's not ready to go to the laser cutter yet because these are strokes and they're not fills. So what I want to do is make a new layer, and you could do this for another thing you want. If you wanted to print it, you could do something different. You have the ability to copy and paste whatever you want. I'm going to call this laser. I'm going to copy everything. I'm going to change the stroke weight to a different color so I don't get confused. And then I am going to I'm going to change the stroke weight after I paste it. I'm going to copy it all. And now I want to turn off all of my eyeballs, my visibility, select laser, and then edit, paste in front. Okay, now that that's happened, I want to go and select the stroke weight, make it a unique color. These are all nice fills, and so that it will laser perfectly.